That summer holiday, when the river turned the fields into a silver coin, and the air smelled of new grass and soap, I learned to listen. We came by truck that rattled and coughed along the lane, the exhaust making lazy black beetles of dust that glittered in the sunlight. Grandfather stood in the doorway, his shirt sleeves rolled, his face a pale map of years that still carried a shy, stubborn smile. The house looked like it had slept all winter and woke with a yawn. The screen door sighed, the kettle sang softly on the stove, and the kettle's steam blurred the window with a thin, humpful cloud. Inside, Mother put a cool cloth on my forehead and pressed a cup of milk into my hand. Outside, cicadas sang their unhurried sermon, a chorus of tiny bells borrowed from the heat. That first morning, the farm breathed around me in a language I did not yet know how to speak. The barn doors opened with a creak that sounded like an old friend saying, "You're late, kid, but you've come back." Hay dust rose in pale sunbeams, hooking the air with the scent of dried straw and sweet-fed alfalfa. The wooden floor under the hens' feet hummed with their gossip, and the chickens settled their eyes on me, as if I might have something to trade for their golden eggs. The well behind the house whispered, "Always there, always enough." I learned, without quite realizing I was learning, to listen for the way a day tells you what it intends to teach. In those weeks, we played the simplest games with the simplest rules. And somehow those rules held us fast through the long, steady days. We chased the day's edge along the orchard, racing the shadows that stretched like sleepy cats between the trees. We played hide and seek among the hay bales, our breaths turning shallow and loud in the dry heat. The sun sending filaments. When a bell in the distance tolled noon, we'd abandon the hay for the shade of the long porch, where a fan laboured with a sweet, tired sigh, and the table bore a pitcher of lemonade that tasted of citrus and memory. The grown-ups talked in the shade, and we watched a line of ants move in their silent, careful procession across the doorstep. It all seemed so ordinary and complete, a world where even the smallest choices mattered as much as the grand ones. But there is always a moment when the ordinary becomes something else, a hinge in the door you didn't realize was there until it swung. One afternoon, I found a sparrow with a broken wing lying under the plum tree, its chest fluttering with the soft, frightened tremor of a creature who did not know what would come next. I wanted to take my small triumphs and prove I could fix everything with a joke or a scolding, but Grandfather crouched beside me and did not scold. He simply observed, a quiet, patient light in his eyes. He spoke in a voice that never yelled, a rolling calm that reminded me of a boat felt more than seen. "Let things be as they are for a moment," he said, and I felt the weight of those words settle in my hands, like a stone I placed on the boat of my own small world. He set the bird in a scrap of cloth and wrapped it loosely so its wings could breathe, and he did not promise miracles or fast cures. He talked softly about patience, about naming what frightened creatures might fear, about giving them a little room to heal. We brought a few droplets of water to its beak, and we covered the sparrow's shelter with a cool leaf. We sat in companionable silence until the heart in its chest slowed enough for it to settle into a steadier rhythm, a sign that maybe, just maybe, it would become whole again. In the hush afterward, Grandfather told me that every creature carries a story that matters, even when it cannot tell it aloud. "If you listen," he said, "you can hear its fear and its hope, and you will know what to do, even when there is nothing dramatic to do, but give a little space and a little mercy. He did not moralize or sermonize. He spoke as one would speak to a child of their own heart, and I felt a soft, stubborn tenderness bloom in me. A widening of imagination that did not know until then that mercy could be as practical as a sip of water, as simple as folding a leaf over a hurt wing. That moment, the sparrow, the quiet, the careful words, unfolded in me an understanding I carried as if it were a seed tucked in the lining of my coat. It was not a grand revelation flaunted in the sun. It was a subtle shift, a widening of what I believed was possible between people and creatures. That gentleness is not weakness, but a form of strength. That listening is the truest form of care, and that small acts of mercy ripple outward in unseen ways. I did not yet know I would become a person who writes or teaches, who learns to pause before I decide what to do, who believes that memory and kindness are twin anchors in storms of time. But I knew, flatly and quietly, that the world felt larger when mercy found its way into ordinary days. Evenings on the porch became little rituals in themselves, a soft architecture of memory. The sun dipped low and lingered, painting the field edges in a gentle pink that warmed the air and coaxed a deeper sigh from the world. Grandmother would come out with a bowl of peas or a plate of sliced tomatoes, the knife sending a thin, precise gleam across the surface. The kettle's whistle would drift through the open windows, and the sound of the river would arrive in the yard like a patient storyteller, recounting the same old tale about water meeting stone and becoming something new again. We would drink lemonade that tasted of sunlight and sugar, tell the same small stories we'd told 100 times, and listen to the elder voices speak in the cadence of years. On one such evening, after we'd eaten and the sky began to bruise with purple, Grandfather asked me to bring him the last slice of bread, crusty and warm from the oven. He held it to the light and broke it into 2 pieces so the steam could escape, then offered me the larger half with that unassuming generosity that felt almost ceremonial in its simplicity. He said, "Bread is a gift you share, as a neighbor shares a look when a child falls down and needs to be picked up." The bread tasted of butter and the sea of home, and in that moment I understood something I would keep forever. The way to belong to a place is to give it away, bread by bread, story by story, mercy by mercy. As the weeks wore on, I noticed how the world seemed to slow itself around my feet. The cicadas grew louder, perhaps in protest of sleep, and the days lengthened into a patient, patient rhythm. I learned to listen, not only with my ears, but with the whole of me. The line of heat on my skin, the faint smell of rain in the air, even when the sky stayed stubbornly clear, the weight of a melon in a grocery basket, the way a grandmother's hand would rest on mine with a confidence that said I was safe there. The river did what rivers do. It kept a promise without ever shouting about it, smoothing the land, carrying the memory of other summers downstream, and widening the horizon of a child. I carried those lessons home with me when the holiday ended and the ordinary world came back with its errands and quieter glories. The city streets did not instantly feel kinder, and I did not instantly become someone strong in the way heroes are written to be. But the memory of grandfather's patient gaze, of the sparrow's fragile wing, of the porch's quiet insistence that small rituals matter, stayed with me like a vital thread in a sleeve, visible only when you look closely, yet weaving through every seam of who I became. I found that I could hold both the ache of the world and its beauty in my hands. that I could tell